All right, welcome to our budget workshop. If we can please call the roll.
Certainly. Mayor Bright Cruz,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kaczynski,
Here.
Councilmember Albritton.
Present.
Councilmember Hartman.
Here.
Councilmember Jablonski.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. If you'll please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, great. Thank you for coming out. This is, a critical part of our town's really life, the funding part, and the team starts with Emil, but really it goes to his staff, it goes to all the other departments, and a lot of resident input as well goes into this. And so we're excited to take a look at the budget. Emil, thank you for heading this up and pulling this together, and looking forward to walking through it. Residents who are here, thank you for coming out. We welcome your input as well. So let me turn it over, Russell, to you.
Yeah, I'll start it off. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Town Council members, and members of the public. It is my pleasure to present for your consideration the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget, which has been the culmination of 6 months of staff and council effort. I'm proud of the hard work put into by staff, and specifically the Financial Services Department, led by Town Financial Administrator Emil Lopez, and supported by Controller Rich Strum, Accountant Ariana Derbige, and Procurement Officer Christina Semeraro. With this being the first budget presented to the Town Council under my direction as Town Administrator, I'm very proud of our ability to present to you a budget that offers no increase in millage, no increase in the fire assessment, and no increase in the solid waste assessment, all while increasing the levels of service in many areas, such as road resurfacing, parks maintenance, and landscape maintenance. With that in mind, I'll now turn it over to Emil to go into the details of the presentation.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, staff, and the public here present and online. With this, we're going to pretty much go into the process of what the budget entails. As Russell indicated, there's a few months of preparation, culminating with first the adoption of the proposed budget back in July 25th. Today, we are presenting the budget workshop to the residents, council, and to get feedback from council as well as the residents. The slide here that you're looking at is pretty much the schedule that we have for the timeline and completion of the budget. And with that, we go into the next one. This slide actually shows the funds, the general fund money that actually the town receives. Before we go any further, it gives you the breakdown of all the funding sources. As indicated by the blue sign, blue color is essentially the highest being is the ad valorem property revenue, which is 9,179,000. With that, the second one is the special assessment revenue. This is actually the fire assessment rate. We have a contract with the town of Davie, which is broken down into public safety, police, and fire, of which there's a portion of fire costs, essentially 60% of that associated to the special assessment revenue, which is herein highlighted. With that, there's a few more items in here. One that I'm going to point out is the last one, which is appropriated fund balance. This has no direction to direct it from council. This is essentially monies that has already been allocated for fiscal year 24 for projects or expenditures that we are foreseeing those to be carried over into the next year. So we are including that as part of the next year's sources. And where do those funds are expensed and what functions? Here, the biggest part of the pie is essentially operating expenses. As this includes, is made out of the two biggest ticket items, which is public safety, police and fire. That actually comprehends almost 70% of that 12 million operating expenses. This also include all the contracts, contractual services like CAP government. But 66% is made up of public safety. Before we go any further, I just want to highlight to council and the public where we stand. Now that we know the funding sources and the expenditures that we are proposing and presenting in this budget workshop, that for fiscal year 2024, we are projecting a surplus of over $1.5 million. It's important that we highlight this portion at this point in time because we want to reinforce the fact that the town administrator has been very informative to the council and the public that what we want to accomplish is a balanced budget that concentrate on increased level of services, and rather than having to have surpluses on a year-by-year basis because not maintaining or putting the money where it needs to be allocated by council, through the budget process, during our one-on-one meetings, we increase those levels of services. So this surplus is not indicative of not allocating the proper resources to the expenditures. This is a good thing that is happening the way it's happening. Why is that? It's because 84% of that surplus is associated to surplus in revenue, not because we actually allocated funds for expenditures and we ended up having to not expense them. So just to give you an example, we are projecting to have an interest income investment surpass that $1 million for fiscal year 2024. Versus last year, we budgeted, 2023 was about $16,000, $20,000, $50,000, and we ended up getting about a little over $600,000. This year, to be conservative and prudent, given the fact that the feds are data-driven as to how they're going to initiate the rate cuts, we contemplated to, we budgeted and presented to council a balanced budget with an interest income of roughly $700,000, of which $524,000 belongs to the general fund. We are estimating a surplus on the general fund alone for interest. On the general fund alone, interest is allocated based on where the sources are coming from, of close to $600,000. And as I mentioned before, that the two biggest items associated to the surplus is that in relation to the over $1.5 million, plus utility service and communication service taxes. Those two items represent, just on the general fund alone, close to $1 million. So there's other items associated to this, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that the main reason as to why we ended up getting a surplus at this level is because of a good thing, a surplus in revenue. With that, we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is basically a summary of what we're presenting to council and the public. Again, the operating millage remains the same from last year adopted to this year, 3.9. They adopted from last year, 2024, based on directive from council and communication during the proposed budget on July 25th. We were able to allocate funds that have previously been provided by council as a subsidy to fire assessment, and on the subsequent slides, we're going to be able to show that to council. That subsidy total amount, the last year is going to be this fiscal year 2025, and the amount was $502,832. Next one. So this is the first one of the three items we're going to be presenting to council and the public, is millage rate. Here, we're recommending to keep the millage the same. this is just to provide this is just as an example. So the citizens can actually look up as to what their increase may be based on the taxable value of the property. So as an example, we're using $500,000. That example indicates that it will be $158 increase from the current year rollback rate of 3.5836 mils. And again, those Save Our Homes exception property owners will not get an increase. Their increase will not exceed 3%. How are we able to propose this millage rate? Well, there's two big factors associated to it that we need to take into consideration. The first is that, as I mentioned before, the feds are expected to do the first rate cut in September of '24, which they have not done for over a year, and a reduce in spending and high prices to the consumer. Taking those two factors into consideration, we still be able to maintain the same millage rate and still provide the same level, increased level of service that the town administrator actually mentioned during his introduction. It's also important to mention that another factor is that the town's assessed valuation for this year increased by 12.55%. Compared to last year's record, it's a significant increase. And where does the town rank amongst the 31 municipalities for within Broward County? Well, we are ranked third. This is essentially the same ranking that we had last year, and we moved one ranking up from 2023, which was fourth place. And with that, the next slide is going to show the remaining municipalities and their millage rate compared year over year. So with that, we finished up the millage rate, and we're going to jump into the fire assessment. The first two highlights presented here is just how is the town able to assess and what resolution actually provide that. There was a change in the methodology, which was back in 2020, which is why we use a methodology in which we break down the residential, the acreage, and the non-combined residential into three categories. For that, for this year, 23 properties has been found to be eligible as 100% tax exception, which is in the amount of $18,242. This is the impact to the general fund, which has been absorbed by the general fund. So this money is not no way associated to the fire assessment rate assessed to the citizens. On the next highlight is essentially that the Florida statutes, those classified as agricultural lands are exempted. For that, the impact, it's $97,073. Here we're breaking down the three portions that I mentioned before. First, the residential fire rate, the acreage, and the combined non-residential rate. As indicated on the slide, we are not presenting any change from last year, so we are highlighting last year's, which was 758.63. We're still going to remain with the same rate, and it's important to mention that we are, in order for us to be able to do this, we're utilizing what I previously mentioned, that subsidy for the 3 years that town council approved back in 2023 of $502,832. And the same is applicable to the acreage. We remain in the same, no change. And he's actually mentioning the total acre vacant non-agricultural that is listed for at that rate. The combined non-residential still, this is highlighting the fact that during the proposed workshop, all of these three items reflected an increase. And here we're providing a 5-year history of the fire assessment rate and acreage. So as mentioned before, they remain to be the same. Okay, this slide was added during last year's budget workshop. Based on directive and knowledge, factual knowledge that the town already knows, that we have a contract with the town of Davie, and we are expecting to have per contract a one-time cost associated to that, to the hiring of an increase in personnel for fire. That amount, expected amount, is $1.4 million. So in order to facilitate and subsidize and minimize the impact to the residents, council directive, and we are proposing pretty much to continue with that same trend, was to utilize $350,000. This money is not included in the fire assessment, so it's not a swap per se. I just want to make sure that clears. This $350,000 is part of the general fund millage budget. So we are still being able to continue with this subsidy or contingency put aside for the remaining next 4 years, resulting in, again, it's important that I mention this, estimated, these are estimated amounts on the volunteer fire costs as well as the town of Davie already known contract. That if we keep this contingency put in place, as of this point in time, the proposal is to utilize $450,000 in '26 to minimize that sudden impact of the current subsidy being removed, plus the change year over year that is expected in '27. And then in '27, we will use the remaining of that amount of $950,000, representing a year over year increase of $1.52 in '26, and in '27, just $18.85. So it's important to mention and make the distinction that several municipalities subsidize the fire protection assessment costs through the property taxes. And some don't even have fire assessment. They are included into the millage rate. So we want to make that distinction known that the town does not subsidize any fire protection costs from the general fund, and we utilize that fire assessment for it. At the same time, other municipalities assess, fire assessment operates at about 75% of full cost recovery. The town, it's under the full cost recovery. So we assess the citizens, what we expect to pay for those services. So with that, this is where we stand for the residential fire rates compared to other municipalities. Again, it's important to mention and make that distinction that some of these municipalities actually do have a breakdown, and they do provide a portion of relief from the general fund, and some, as I indicated before, are fully paid through the general to the millage rate, which is why you only see 25 municipalities here. So with that, we move into the solid waste assessment presentation. This is essentially permitted by Florida statutes, and it was established through town ordinance back into the ordinance 2002-08. Utilizing town council directive from the proposed adopted budget on July 25th, to utilize a portion of that subsidy or whatever was left in order for us to keep that fire assessment the same as the previous year. We utilized $252,000 in order for us to be able to keep the fire assessment rate the same as last year. Give us a balance of $250,000. We utilized that from that subsidy, and that resulted in us being able to utilize, having the need to utilize $14,000 to make up that difference and keep those same rates intact or change from last year. Something that was mentioned and discussed is that the possibility to utilize whatever was needed in order to make up that difference from unassigned fund balance or from any other sources from previous year. We were able to go into our contingency, as is known during our conversations, that we know that the solid waste of WM, per contract, we do have a CPI increase as well as a true up. It could be a true down. Given those circumstances, we also, just to be fiscally responsible and not affecting from operating expenses from the solid waste fund, we put a small portion in contingency to make up for that difference should in any event the town be impacted by that. So we feel safe that based on that contingency that we put aside to make up for that, should in the event having to end up with a true up, we feel safe that we could use a portion of that without having to go back to utilize unassigned fund balance from previous periods. And that's the reason why we listed that from general funds rather than from appropriated fund balance. With that said, then the next portion is just mention the fact that the number of properties that has been exempted based on town's resolution, 50% exempted, 23 were considered to be permanent service connected to several U.S. vets, and that is going to result in a tax exception of approximately $6,377. Again, just as mentioned on the previous portion, this also is absorbed within the general fund, so there's no impact to the solid waste rate. Okay, so now that we know that there's no change, so here we're pretty much just showing what was the rate last year. It was 554.57, as mentioned next to it, no change from fiscal year '24. The bulk waste average cost per unit works a little bit differently. It's work on, based on footage lat range, thank you, on which we have tracks that falls within a range. That average last year was $674.42, so there's no change being proposed and presented in this workshop. And this slide pretty much just show what those rates are. Since I only mentioned the bulk waste average, here it's listing what those rates will be for next year. Which shows no change. Thank you. With that, we conclude our presentation, and we are ready to answer any questions that council and the public may have.
All right. Thank you for that presentation, and certainly there's a lot of good news in that presentation. It's very rare that we are able to present a budget with no increases for our residents, and also showing a sizable surplus from the prior year that really puts us in a very healthy situation. So great work by the entire staff to be able to keep within budget and actually create that surplus. Emil, I want to call you out for a second. I know when we talk about the interest, that additional income, that was your baby. You identified it, you brought it in, and you made a huge difference for our residents. So thank you for that. All right, so with that, let me open it up to the council if there's any particular questions or issues that we want to bring up.
Just a quick comment. Great job, Rich and Emil, sorry. In a year where inflation has been everybody's biggest concern, we were able to flatline our budgets and basically not increase fees or ad valorem. That takes a lot of hard work. Thank you for taking our comments back and making the adjustments so there are no increases across the board. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job.
Yep. I think he wants to respond.
Go ahead.
I'm not responding. It's something that the fact that you mentioned this is important that council and the public actually realize that this year millage rate of 3.90, the lowest it has been since 2010, and which was, I believe it was 3.94. Considering the inflation, considering the cost for the town and council to be able to maintain that millage, almost 15 years later at that rate, it's to your credit.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's a point that I want to take one step further. You know, I remember being here when this town was formed. There was a lot of doubt about whether or not, without the commercial side, without that all being there, focusing on rural, you know, would we have the ability to financially make it? And I think what we've proven over the last 20-plus years is that the strategy we've been on of protecting our rural lifestyle, promoting our rural lifestyle, and promoting the open spaces, all those things combined have created a very desirable community, and which has led to just exceptional financial strength. And so I think it proves that this whole vision that we had 20-plus years ago was the right one, and that even today, 24 years later, it is still a good, sound, positive way moving forward. There's no downside. We're not giving things up, you know, creating huge millage rates to be able to protect this open space. The fact of the matter is that the open space is an amazing thing, the rural lifestyle is an amazing thing, and that it all comes together for financially as well. So
Third lowest millage says a lot about it.
huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to bring up one minor thing. It just came to my attention this afternoon, and I want to throw it out there. Not that we would make a change in the budget per se, but I do want to bring it up as we're all together so that you all can discuss it individually with staff and such when you have a chance to take a look it over. But there was a proposal that was sent to me regarding potentially some sort of a program for compost for the town. And it looks like we could potentially do a kind of a pilot program, maybe limiting it up to 100 homes just to try it out, and not go full bore, you know, year one, but year one potentially doing, like I said, a pilot up to 100 homes, and it would cost us, for every other week pickup, it would cost us about $2,400 for the year. So, if I read that right, or was it, what was that, per month? Per month, sorry, per month. Okay. And so still a very reasonable, what I think is a very reasonable cost, and so I think, I just got it this afternoon. I'm not ready to judge one way or the other, but when I look at it, to me, it makes a lot of sense. If the mechanics work with WM, which could be an issue, if the numbers are there from a financial standpoint, but we talk about, going beyond the conversation and into a real, starting to put, things into reality, and this could potentially be a good first step. If the number is too high, maybe the initial pilot is 50 homes or something, whatever makes sense for the budget. So I throw that out there, not for a final decision by any chance tonight, but to just, I'm thinking about it, maybe you all can think about it.
Just to take that to the next step, how would we proceed to decision on this? Because there's a lot, like you say, there's a lot of variables in there, size of it, cost, et cetera. What would next steps, would you think to include it in this year's budget as something that's unplanned that we would use out of reserves next year, or what you're thinking?
Well, my thinking is that we would kick it over to the financial staff and let them see if they have any recommendations on where the money should come from, where it's best come from. I have concerns from a mechanic standpoint. Are we already committed to give this to WM?
Right.
Right? And if we are, then we're going to have to talk to them. We probably can't do it this coming year. We're going to have to talk to them, negotiate something, and move from that. So that's one of the things I think we need to overcome and discuss. I think the other thing is financially looking at it and coming up with what's the right number for the pilot, assuming we can do it. Right. And because I do want to do it as a pilot if we do it. I don't want to go crazy year one. I want to learn year one so that we don't make mistakes. Right. That are big mistakes. There may be minor mistakes that we can adjust.
Totally support it.
Yeah, Mayor, that sounds like a good idea. We just having Emil look at the numbers. What's the payback?
Yeah.
If there is a payback, is it aesthetically a payback, that we're reducing our waste? Do we get a credit from WM for a reduction in waste? You know, all those little details that, you know, if it flatlined where it paid for itself, that would be great.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that's the ultimate goal.
Right.
Is not to save money, but to use it correctly.
Right.
And reduce the overall waste, you know, going on that. I have a topic I'd like to discuss whenever you guys.
Yeah, no, I think unless there's any other comments on that,
Real quick, I'd like to say thank you to the council for supporting our vets. This will really help them.
Yeah.
You know, it makes a big difference, disabled vets and stuff. So I thank the council for that. Thanks, Emil, for the numbers. I appreciate it.
all right. Any other comments on the composting? No, see? Okay, thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we will open it up to the public. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, rather delicately, well, I'll just come right out and say it. Okay, I think Russell needs help. And I think he doesn't need a project manager. He needs
You want to qualify
another
that?
Russell. He needs an assistant.
Yeah, he does.
He needs an administrative assistant, not a project manager. And
Okay.
that's what I'm looking. I'm looking at somebody that if something happens to him, car wreck, and he's out for 30 to 45 days, God forbid, okay, all right, you know, or he has a boating accident, or whatever. I mean, life happens, okay? Life happens, all right, things
Absolutely.
happen. That we have somebody that's qualified to knows his job, that can stand in, like what Russell was to Andy.
Yeah.
There was if anytime Andy went on vacation, it was a smooth transition.
Yeah.
There was no hiccups, which is all credit to Russell and to Andy, more so to Russell, because you never knew that Andy was gone for a while, except he'd chirp you with emails every now and then.
Right.
You know, but regardless, Russell does not have that right now,
Correct,
and he needs it.
correct.
And I think that should be in this budget, not as a project manager, but as an administrative assistant to him, so that I mean, it's going to cost more money, I think, than what we have budgeted here. But I think it's going to be worth it, and I think it's necessary. And I
Yeah, no,
love to hear you guys'
you know,
thoughts on
I
it.
almost think that you listened in on my conversations with Russell on this, because we had very similar conversations along those same lines.
I've been saying that since week number 2 that he assumed the duties.
Yeah, we've been talking about it as well. So I would defer to Russell. I've had that conversation, and Russell, please give me your thoughts. Gary, I support what you're saying.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the council for being, you know, for even bringing this up, and you know, I'm actually surprised, and we have had those conversations. I appreciate it. As you know, from the very beginning, I've been reluctant to advocate for and I want to clarify, it's an assistant town administrator, not an administrative assistant, so let's just be very clear. I've been reluctant to do that because I keep hearing Newell in one ear saying no empire building, so I've been very careful about bringing forward those kinds of proposals. But, you know, being on the job now 8 months, I want to be able to be more strategic and not just putting out fires. And so an assistant town administrator that can support me in the things that I need to get done will allow me to be more strategic, and I'll be able, you know, to have that person to be what I was to Andy, basically, as you stated. So I would love to have that support to do that. I certainly didn't want to put that in the budget this year without, obviously, you know, I'm glad that you're bringing it forward, but it's something that I was initially reluctant to do because I didn't want to be perceived as coming in here and essentially, you know, empire building. So, thank you for the
I
consideration.
don't look at it that way, Russell. I look at it as you know, proper management of the town. You know, I mean, what happens if you go on vacation? You're not allowed at this point.
Pretty much how it's been.
You know, a day off it's a luxury. You know, we need somebody in that position who can take over at a moment's notice.
Permanent.
Certainly has my support. Let's just run down here. Let's see.
So
what
we're going to
other-
cut his salary in half to fund the second person? I'm looking at zero game, that's all. No, Russell?
Good luck.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I see Russell, when I came in here 5 minutes before this meeting, he's writing emails. I mean, I appreciate his efficiency, but there's a law of diminishing returns as well. I think he can get a lot more done if he gets some help, so I totally support it.
Yeah. David?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Russell does need help, and I mentioned that to him as well. Will we be able to live within the limitations of the 3.9 cap? That's, with the funding that we have to various departments, that's a concern of mine. I really
Yeah,
don't
I
want
think
to.
that's a great point, and I think that's you know, a line that we cannot cross when we adjust here.
That's correct.
Yeah. Jim?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with it. You know, it's been said, Andy had Russell. Russell doesn't have Russell. There's a big difference there, right? If we could find it to do, like I said, and keep that 3.9 there, I'm all for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would think, looking at the administrative, which was funded in this budget, it's $118,000. Okay, I'm thinking that we would probably need to add somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to that number.
I think it may be more than that.
Yeah.
I think it may be more like 40, but
Well,
yeah, but
I'm
I
getting
think
a number.
that's,
But I think, but I do believe we can find the money to put in there
Yeah.
to cover that, where we don't have to increase millage.
Right.
well, that
In
would
fact,
be our charge.
I know
for
a
them.
couple of places where we
Yeah.
can find that money,
Yeah.
you know, to cover that. It's a question of going through the hiring process, writing the job description, the whole enchilada of interviewing and going all that. But I think we need to do it sooner than later.
Yeah.
And I think we need to authorize Russell to start on the project, putting together some sort of synopsis of what the job would entail. And
Well, I know he's already started on the process as far as,
the project manager.
the project manager,
but
so
this
that would
has gotta
need
go
to
a
be
little bit.
pulled back and reworked, so it's going to take a little bit of time. But Russell, let me just turn it over for you, like, some feedback on the mechanics here.
Yeah, so as you stated, I do have a job description that we put together for the administrative project manager. We'll have to rework that a little bit more so I can hire a higher level person. We will rework the numbers to make sure that it's a non-starter. We're not going to go beyond the 3.9. That if it whatever we're going to propose as far as a position and a salary, proposed salary and benefits and everything else like that, it must stay within the 3.9. So that's certainly my commitment to you, that we won't bring back anything that will affect that proposed millage rate. So we will rework the job description. We will need to obviously put out the job on the job boards, on the town website, so on and so forth, go through the recruitment process, and then bring in the right person.
Good. Great suggestion, Gary.
Just a quick question. Somebody had said 118 roughly is
Well,
where that
it's
is.
in the budget at 118.
Right. So, and you're mentioning perhaps 40 more K roughly, so
Mm-hmm.
that brings it to 158. All in, or does that include benefits, or we're going to wait for the number?
Well, the
I was
118's
just
got,
throwing out
Okay.
a general number.
Yeah.
I didn't-
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
We will submit a number, a proposed number. It will have to be in line, obviously, with other like positions
Right.
in the Tri-County area. We certainly will, take into account that we're a smaller town, as we do with every other position that we have in the town. The number that you see there for the 118 was the salary plus benefits for the administrative project manager. So now we would have to bring up the base salary, keep the benefits, but they would also proportionally go up as well. So I don't have an exact number because this was,
Sure.
I'm just being caught off guard by all of
Come
it.
on,
But we will rework that, but I would suspect that it would be somewhere in total, somewhere in the 140 to 150 range, all in with benefits. Would
Good.
that be approximately? Maybe a little bit more. Okay, so maybe a little
Emil's
bit more.
not
But we'll
committed.
bring something back.
Good, do the homework and let us know. All in.
Good. All right, any other comments before I open it up to the public?
Good idea, Gary.
thank you. Thank
All
you.
right, seeing none, let me open up for public comment.
Debbie Green. Thank you for bringing up the
Composting.
the composting. Yeah, that was one of my questions. I don't know where, that there's some monies that are budgeted for zero waste in our initiatives and efforts in reducing our solid waste. So I don't know where that's built in. Is it part of the solid waste budget? There needs to be a separate line item in there. But I was going to ask that you all just, think of putting at least $50,000 to $75,000 in the budget. So it's not coming from Gary's magical bucket. I forget what it is. I don't know if it's the forfeiture, whatever it was called.
Don't-
That magical bucket
Don't go
that,
there.
Forfeiture, let's go with forfeiture.
Forfeiture.
fund.
that the dollars come from. But if we can actually build something into this budget, so that there's something for a zero waste consultant to help and assist the Zero Waste Advisory Board in creating a zero waste master plan for the town, for some, composting initiatives, that kind of thing. And also, I know the Zero Waste Advisory Board has requested for Emily to look into some of the grants that are out there, because I know, I believe in some of my research and my education that there are several public-private ventures, that there's grants out there that require public-private ventures. So maybe that's something that maybe we can even get grants to cover a lot of that composting costs. And then my other thing was in regards to the solid waste assessment and how WM does their true up or true down, whatever the case may be. I think we need to question or just understand what assumptions are going into that true up or true down. Because if they're continuing on assumptions that were from the year ago and we're making changes within the town and trying to increase the education and recycling and reuse. And just as a quick example, our recycling is down in my house and at town hall, just using water bottles as an example. Because now that we're all trying, especially in town hall, trying to use the reusable water bottles, just think how many plastic water bottles are not being recycled every day at town hall.
Right.
So that's just one example that we just need to make sure that those assumptions that are being used are not from the past, but they're assumptions of the way we're looking to move.
Perfect, good, thank you.
I agree with Debbie. I think composting and things are good ideas, but I participated in the Master Gardening Program, and while composting was a little thing for me, it wasn't my thing. It was another gentleman who's passed away. But one of the things about zero waste is sustainability, and you're not supposed to spend money to do it. We're supposed to, you teach one who teaches one who teaches one. I was thinking about maybe if a grant, because I know a lot are available, and University of Florida has a Davie campus, and I know Master Gardeners has somebody who comes out and teaches composting. I don't know if they have somebody at the University of Florida campus in Davie. But one of the things I was thinking is maybe like the town could purchase in bulk, use barrels or some kind of container, and then somebody could teach us, the town purchases, and if you were interested, you could reimburse the town that cost, because it'd be cheaper if you bought them in bulk, pardon the pun. And then somebody teach each one of us how to do it. Because if we're going to really compost, it's not the most pleasant odor if you're using a bunch of household products. I mean, Nancy probably has shown Bob that, but it's an unpleasant smell. So you definitely want like a rain barrel, oil barrel, you want a metal can, you don't want the plastic that hold odors. So maybe you could look along those lines, and the Zero Waste Committee could talk to Emily and inquire at the University of Florida in Davie, and the Master Garden Program. I know December, I think, is a Master Naturalist, but they have someone who will, and that we have to do 40 hours a year, so they have to, earn that. They get credit for maintaining their certification, and it would teach us all. And like if I invest a few dollars in a container, well, that means I'm vested in the concept. And anyway, just something to think about. Thank you.
Good evening. Richard, Southwest 166th Avenue. So I just wanted to back up Debbie and say that I support the move to work with a compost company that's professional in doing this. And I think what we're proposing here is that it's a door-to-door pickup service. If you're interested in doing the pilot program, I would suggest that we look at all 4 districts and dividing up that number between the 4 districts so that everyone partakes, and we can gather the data that we need over a period of 1 year, and therefore we can make a better assessment moving forward. The thing is, if we're going to divert food scraps away from regular pickup with waste management, I would imagine that we need to look at the contract and see if we can offset that expense. So this way, like Gary was saying, that it can flatline and pay for itself. So that's what I would suggest. I think there's space for home composting, but at the same time, we need to get into robust composting, and it requires a professional company to be involved in guiding us and educating our people. This is what we're looking forward to. On the other hand, I wanted to mention something about the agricultural liaison position. Marianne and I have worked on this proposal, shared it with both the mayor and Russell. Unfortunately, Marianne is not here tonight because she had a procedure with her spine, so she apologizes for not being here, but she did ask me to mention to the council that we should be looking at budgeting for this position because it's something that is necessary to help us preserve, protect, and promote agriculture for many generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
I'm a little bit disappointed when I just heard. I thought we understood the magnitude of the problem. We're talking about Mr. Berner coming in here, okay, and talking about, what is it, up to 5 at $1.5 billion? They're going to look for every way to shoot you out of the sky. If you come in with the happiest recycling, reposting, whatever you got, it's still not industrial strength. You've got to be able to prove that this works financially on a billion-dollar scale. You've got to scale it. You have no idea what it's like to put on fleets of trucks or contract for fleets of trucks. We don't even know what really what our bill, all we get is numbers in total. We have no verification, no way to even write a proper check for that information on what we're being charged. So when true-up comes, what does true-up mean? Okay, especially with a company that's already been nailed with tax evasion. I mean, I'm telling you the truth. I'm not making any of this up. I invest in companies every day. Okay, I was probably up $60,000 today. I've got a very successful investment business going. I understand business. I've been in business myself for 44 years. I've personally been in garbage companies. I see how they're run. I see what they joke about, and some of it's not too pleasant. It would scare most people right the hell out of the damn room. But we really got to think about what we're trying to accomplish, because if we fool around with anything other than keeping our mind on what the objective is, okay, we're going to end up with the 5 burners, and they're going to have every reason in the world to justify it. We got to have a better plan than this. And I'm also asking you for some money tonight. We got Richard Ramshire in here who's supposed to have all kinds of understanding about composting and that sort of thing. It's actually very simple. If we maintain a temperature of 180 degrees and we watch what we're doing, okay, that's the way it works. It's not a big rocket project. To me, we got a guy that's already legal with a track record of 10 years who already has Palm Beach shipping him yard waste because it doesn't get enough BTUs, so they substitute tires. For Christ's sake, you can shred tires and make great mulch. I bought some for my house. It's still not as cheap as ground up rotten plywood, which is what some of these guys do at C&D, but it's something to get started with. We can make this happen next week if we start working on the project and put the minds together that are supposed to know so much about this already. But I'm going to need some kind of historical data on what we're paying for now, what the assumptions were in the beginning, so we can establish a trend. We don't even know how much metal or how much yard waste. I mean, we have no idea what's flying out the door. I just came back from Fish Eating Creek today. You wouldn't believe the amount of garbage trucks going this way and that way, and they're not going necessarily to Waste Management's landfill in Okeechobee.
Yep, thank you, Jim.
But, and then we got Dade County. So, listen, this is a big problem.
I understand.
$1 billion
I
problem.
understand. Thanks, Jim.
Noel Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. I just got the book tonight, so I'm at a disadvantage. I'm only going to pick on one department. Sorry, December. Anyway, and this goes back to what I said last year. We're talking about here on page 117, coordinate and facilitate events. And it mentions Chili Festival, Carnival, Country Fair, bingo at the barn, barn dances, Unity and Diversity 5K run, food trucks, holiday events. It doesn't mention a couple of other things, those things that the Parks Department also does. Main one being the Fun Horse Show. We go over a couple of pages over here, which I had asked last year that all of that be broke out, because, where was it? Anyway, I lost my page. Here we go. Over here on 121, where it says promotional activities, town events. It has a lump sum again, just like last year. Asked for all of these items to be broken out. Which one of those items over there, there's always a cost for every last one of those. We have a couple of new things. We have the chess tournament here. That has a cost that the town has to pay, maybe built in, but it's still a cost that adds up in the maintenance, cleanup of the room. Someone has to be here. We have to pay them. What is the cost of the horse show? I asked for all of those to be broke out. None of these are broke out. It's lump summed again, just like last year. And I was told that they would work on it and they would have it this year. They don't. Sorry, Emil, but unless it's somewhere else in this book, the breakdown, why isn't it there? Because you said you'd do it this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Newell.
Good evening, guys. John Garati, 162nd Avenue. Just a couple questions. Emil, good job on all the stuff you do. You impress me every time you speak. You sound like you know everything in those books, which you should. That's what you get paid to do. But one of the things that didn't make sense to me, and hopefully you guys will clarify it, the fire assessments. You said that we don't take it out of the general fund. It comes out of, I guess, you bill each resident per home. I just wanted a little clarity on that. Another thing I wanted to touch on was the solid waste. Again, these are, is this on? You guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I know I'm loud. The solid waste assessments, I know these are assumptions, and you guys go off of figures that, you know, true up or true down, as it's called. How are we going to reduce, right? How are we going to, this bulk waste, for example, the bulk waste average cost per unit, $674.42. In conversating a little bit with Todd Storty, the gentleman that's in charge of the Solid Waste Authority, that's the biggest problem. When we get to that zero waste solution, hopefully, right? Those numbers that need to be reduced. How do we get a budget that reduces this with your contract, with Waste Management, to find that happy marriage of, hey, it's not going to cost us this. You know, I know it's complicated, and I know this is newfound, you know, these are things that we didn't think about 10 years ago. But if we're going to get to a zero waste solution, I don't hear you guys, and I know this is just the first chatter about this. How do we budget for a zero waste plan at the end of the year or at the beginning of next year? How do we get there if we're not speaking about it? Another thing, Protect our agricultural freedoms. That's kind of like my little motto on all my funny little signs out there. I'm running out of time. Give me 20 seconds. That has to be budgeted. I mean, this week, there's meetings that I'm going to be involved in with the BCPA regarding inspections, regarding agriculture. That has to be, if we're going to do a liaison, Mary Ann or whoever is going to be involved in that, that has to be first and foremost to be spoken of, because that's what this town was founded on. Those initial agricultural guys, those farmers, even hobby guys that do it for, just to maintain something. That has to be on the top of your list, along with the zero waste. And if I can get a little clarity on that fire assessment situation, I think that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any other public comment? You're breaking the rules. Very quickly, please.
I just wanted to say really quick, so have the town, by way of a safety grant, partly by way of a safety grant, and whether it's 35, whatever it is, to benefit the 42 homes in Circle S, just think, if you put aside 50, 75,000 for zero waste initiatives and all of that, that is benefiting all the housing units, which was like 2,500 as of the last census versus 42. That was all. Thank you.
Got it. Point taken. All right. Any other public comment? All right. See. Can you be as quick as Debbie? That's the question. We'll see.
Don't use the word I.
Using Debbie's analogy, if we do a true cost-benefit analysis, which is not done anymore, they just sign little orders and send you some money, okay, we could distinguish between Circle S and all this other stuff with the benefits it would be to this town on the overall tax rate and the assessment of the solid waste by getting this act together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right. Any other public comment? Seeing none, public comment closed. Thank you for the feedback. All right. So there's a few things, follow-up items, great questions from the public, as always. First one, breaking out the PROS projects into specifics to where we got those numbers from. Can you speak to that, and can we get that breakout relatively quickly?
Yes, Noel is right. He did mention it last year. It was not included this year. It is doable. It's possible to break it down.
Okay. When do you think we can have that
We
by?
could possibly have it included for the proposed, the preliminary millage rate for the September 12th meeting.
Do you think we could get it earlier than that so we could look at it before the meeting?
Oh, no, the town council would actually get the page, but I was under the impression the question was, is it going to be included on the budget book? So I'd say it is.
Oh,
possible.
yeah, no, that's fine. How quickly can we just get that breakout so that council can see it and we can distribute it to Newell because he specifically asked for it?
I would probably say, I don't want to put Burton.
I'm not asking for tomorrow. I'm just asking when are you comfortable providing?
Definitely next week.
Okay, so Newell, by Friday of next week, we should have that to you, okay? All right.
Mayor, if I could just address that very
Sure.
quickly, too. So for the purpose of presenting a.
I don't think your mic is picking you up. I don't know if it's too far away or.
I'm probably too far away. Is that better?
Okay, that's better.
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't want to sound like Barry White, so for the purposes of presenting the budget, we never go to that level of detail where every single, and then, pros aside, every department has several items that make up a category. If we were to present every single item, your budget book would be so voluminous that you really wouldn't derive a lot of value in going through it. So we put categories of expenditures together, summarize them, and put them to you. Now, if there's a particular area, like in this case that Noel mentioned, that he wanted to see the detail behind a particular category within a division or department, we always have that, and that's always available if it's requested. But we don't, just like any other city, just like any other municipal organization, you won't see that every single line item level of detail for the presentment of a budget book. So.
And I agree 100% with that philosophy because you can totally get lost in detail and miss the big picture. Very easy to do. Matter of fact, some Not this organization, certainly, but I have been involved with organizations that's a strategy, to just throw detail on top of detail on top of detail, because they'll never figure it out. And we don't want to get there. We don't want to be there. So I agree 100%. But when there's a specific question about specific detail, it doesn't even need to be in the budget book per se, but it needs to be available to the public and to those that have an interest in it.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Otherwise, just print the GL.
Yep. All right. Zero waste. Let's talk about that a little bit. That came up. I do want to make a distinguishing factor here between zero waste and zero cost. Okay. Zero waste is not zero cost, and zero waste is not free. So, so going to zero waste remains to be. I think our objective with zero waste would be to move there and basically kind of have a flat, no increase, no decrease. I think that should be our objective. But the thought of going to zero waste and then, so when we look at the budget, talking about specifically about what was brought about the budget, that it's not in there, we would not have an add-on for zero waste. We would not have a decrease for zero waste. What we want is a plan for zero waste that fits within the budget. And I think that's kind of what Debbie was talking about there, that we do need some funding to kind of get that started. So that would be a plus, probably, an additional expense. But hopefully, we would be able to recover that. One of the ways we're going to recover that is going to be behind the scenes, but is that true up and true down? Right. If we divert waste from our normal pickup, that will show up in our true up, and it'll either be a true down or it won't be as high as it otherwise would have been.
Right.
So,
Reduce our
that
tipping costs.
Yeah, exactly. We'll reduce the tipping costs. So that is going to be, or it's already in our contract. It's already the way it is. It's going to be a plus for our town, which could easily make up that $40,000 or whatever the number is that goes in there. So I just wanted to bring that up from the standpoint of, it's really the plan that we're talking about, and we want to keep the numbers as neutral as possible.
Understood. And Mayor, just so you know, just to take this one step further, we didn't want to add a bunch of perceived needs for zero waste. Like, we've talked about needing a consultant. We've talked about, staffing proposals, and we've talked about various aspects of it. We didn't want to saddle the budget with that without knowing what those true costs are going to be. So the strategy would be that, obviously, as we develop this plan further, if the council identifies as a priority certain things that they want us to get behind, such as a zero waste consultant, let's say, then we certainly have unassigned fund balance that we could take that from, plan for that for future years, but take it out in this, in the middle of this fiscal year 25 if need be, if that priority is identified, and go from there. And then we totally understand what you're suggesting, that these efforts should hopefully be, cost neutral at some point, but it's going to take some startup money, as we discussed, as you mentioned tonight. Those things can be taken out of unassigned fund balance. We just didn't want to put them into the fiscal year 25 without knowing what those costs are going to be, because we really don't know what a consultant's going to cost us right now. We don't
Right.
know what some of these other startup costs are going to be. So we didn't think it was prudent to put them and saddle them with this budget until we knew what those costs were going to be.
Okay. But we do know those costs are coming. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Just a quick comment. Maybe
Yeah.
this is the time to put a stake in the ground and ask the Zero Waste Advisory Board to start trying to flesh out what we should be planning for.
Yeah.
And then we pass that along to Russell and his team when we think that plan is substantive enough that they could then start pursuing it. And next year, it's in the budget.
I think that's a great point. And I would ask, following up on that, I think that's excellent, that really where this should start, I think what Bob is alluding to, is that we really need a request from the Zero Waste Board, right? And so that we have something to build that around. And I see that's already underway. So, yeah, but and let me be clear. Not that the request becomes an automatic allocation, right? The request we would massage it and see how it would fit. Okay. All right. Anything else on zero waste? I have a couple other items, but anything else on zero waste? Yeah, go ahead.
Just want to mention one thing that I see a lot, and it has to do with education. And we started off with the stickers.
Yep.
But if you drive around on garbage days in our various neighborhoods, you see, on the recycling days, you see the recycling containers full of household trash. Numerous as you go down the street. And of course, the recycling truck's not going to pick it up.
Right.
And the other truck picks it up. And that's why we had a lower number than what we assumed we were going to have
Right.
for recycling. So we've got to figure out a way to police ourselves.
Absolutely.
I think that's going to be one of the first priorities, as, you can lead a horse to water, but,
Yeah.
the old saying,
Yeah.
on something like that. So I think that's probably that's the fastest solution if we could ever figure out a way to make that work. Just pointing that out, something.
It's a great point. We've got a long ways to go. We're still on mile one of walking across the country, I think. But but we know we have to walk across the country, and we are on mile one. So, but I think it's a great point. Education. It comes up all the time at the SWA meetings. We have increased our budget for education at the SWA meetings, I think 3 or 4 times already, because it's becoming more and more obvious that that's a huge element, and it's not a one-time shot. It's a continuous education, because there's always folks coming in. There's always folks that have, getting bad information from one source or another, and so it just has to continually go on. But, yeah, education, good point. Let's talk about the ag person for a second. I believe that we do have that as part of our budget here. Can we speak to that?
So again, while that proposal did get sent out to the town council, we were waiting for definitive action from the council about that position. So quite frankly, Mayor, we did not put that in the budget at this point.
Okay.
But it's something that, again, the proposal would be, we have a part-time position, and as we discussed with you all individually, the strategy would be to make that part-time position a full-time position. So I think that that's another position that if we had, if that's the council priority, council direction to do that and include it in the fiscal year 25 budget, we could do that with not a lot of additional costs. There obviously would be some benefit costs because it's a full-time position. But I still think that we would be able to accomplish that as well with minimal impact, no impact.
I think that's
additional.
required.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, I don't know what
We wanted to hear that from the council
Yeah.
basically tonight.
I've read through the proposals. I've read, you and I have had numerous conversations. I kind of got this started back about 4 months ago now. I just have a hard time justifying in my own mind the amount of work that's necessary to justify even a part-time position. I mean, I'd love to get a sense of the activities that this person be working through and what would they be filling up their day, week, and month with? Because to fund another position for $60,000, $70,000 for an FTE, is there enough work for that person to be, effective and working all the time? Or is this something that's more demand-driven now for maybe the next year or two, and we need to give somebody some additional responsibilities within the organization?
Yeah.
I read through, and I was going to talk to you about it tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
Russell, you had mentioned that when the property appraiser comes here, there's a ag representative that comes with them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
The property appraiser committed to that when we had the meeting with him and some of the members of the community. And the very last outreach that they had was last week. They had Patrick Shortsleeve, if you know who he is. He's one of their chief ag classification people. He happened to be here and indicated that they will be sending someone every single time that they have the outreach into the future. So once a month, and that's something that we're going to promote. Quite frankly, we didn't promote it purposely because although the commitment was made, I wasn't sure 100% that it was going to happen. Now that I saw that the person has been here, we will promote that going forward, and I'm hopeful that the residents, farmers, hobby farmers, or full-fledged farmers will take advantage if they have questions as it relates to the ag classification process, questions about ag, that they will come out and utilize that service.
But also,
Mayor?
just to be clear on, sorry.
No, okay.
Just to be clear on that, we want to maintain the separation between whoever works with us and the property appraiser's office because they're distinctly different.
Correct. And that's why the proposal, I'm sorry, Mayor, you want to?
I was just going to say, that I think that from the certainly additional support from the property appraiser's office is welcome. It's overdue, it's welcome. I thrilled that they're doing that. I think it's a very positive step. But I think that we are not, I think we're kind of kidding ourselves if we think that they are going to change their perspective from what their perspective has been historically to all of a sudden becoming an advocate for our residents just because that person is there. That's not, I don't see that happening at all. So I think that we still need that advocate. I get your point. I don't know how much time that person is going to be, and that's why I felt like if we could, originally I was thinking we could just add it to somebody's current responsibilities, but the feedback I got was that we were not comfortable with that and that we would need a part-time. So I guess I'm looking back at you, Russell, to say that that was the feedback I got. Now, I'm not sure if I'm still hearing that or not, but I am convinced that we need this advocate in the town. Whether it is the responsibilities of somebody that's already there, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that, but I could live with that if that's what we decide needs to be done. I am most comfortable with some sort of a part-time. I don't see, it being I think the number would be a lot less than $60,000 for a part-time.
Right.
But I think I'm most comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with a full-time at this point, to be honest, because I think that would fall under the category of perhaps empire building. So I'm not.
So this is-
but that's kind of where my thought.
That would be overkill.
Yeah, Mayor?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mayor, if you would.
I want to know what the responsibilities are and, their
Right.
activities.
Yep.
Yeah, Mayor, the property appraiser is sending someone here. We have a part-time person here in town now that could meet with them. Let's give it a 6-7 month, let's give it a trial and see if our person and them working together, he's on part-time, he's on our salary anyhow, working with them. Why can't they try to work together and instead of making a full-time position out of it?
I don't think anybody's talking about a full-time position, Jim.
Well, like I said, work with the property appraiser. Let's give them 6 months or so. This is brand new, is it? How long have they been coming?
Just this last month.
Okay.
So,
And they've committed to coming each and every month, correct? Let's give it a
Yes, that's
6-month trial and see what happens with it. I mean,
I think we're in budgets.
Yeah.
We can't come up with a new budget
Yeah.
in 2 or 3 months, okay? This is budget season, we've got to make a decision. We can't just kick it down the road. I would much rather put the money in there for, say, a part-time position based on, Bob, I agree, we need to understand better what the responsibilities are and the time
Yeah.
commitment associated with it. But I would feel much better putting the money in the budget and then determining for whatever reason we don't need to spend it than to come back later and have something there that's not there. But I think we're going to need to spend it.
We should plan
Okay.
it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
all
Mayor,
right, I see what you're
just to
saying, right.
address-
I understand.
Just to address some of those concerns, having a part-time person fill this position, the biggest concern would be their lack of availability for residents that do come in. If they're part-time, they're clearly not going to be here all the time to answer the questions when they come in. I understand that we can take a message or they can respond back when they are here. I get that, but you're essentially, in a way, you miss the mark in terms of service because you're not going to have somebody here who's available to take care of somebody who comes in and urgently has a question or urgently has, needs a referral or something like that. Don't forget, too, that with the proposal that was submitted and the way we reworked that proposal, there were a lot of other, administrative items or responsibilities that were associated other than just kind of being an ombudsman, if you will, or liaison for the BCPA. It was, registries and things like that, and, communicating with people, communicating with members of the community who are willing to serve, or veterinarians, and maintaining those databases that we talked about in the proposal. If you have someone who's part-time, potentially you might miss the mark. And so I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it at all and it should only be a full-time, but the thought was not to add a whole new full-time position. It was to take the proposal, or the staff proposal was take the part-time position that we have and turn it into a full-time position. If that's not council direction, and that's fine. We'll make it work with another part-timer, but it's, I just think that you have the potential for a lapse in service if they're not always available to answer those calls, be available every day.
Yeah, no, I don't, to be honest with you, I don't see that as an issue, to be 100% honest. I think you set up office hours, and those are the hours that the person is here in-house. I don't think they're going to be busy with a stream of individuals coming in. I think there'll be a lot of in-between time to work on those registries and things like that. I don't see a problem. I don't see a problem with it, to be honest with you.
If it's too much, we can always increase it. I'd rather start out small, one bite at a time.
Yeah, David.
Hey, Steve, I was not really advocating, just throwing an idea out there. Maybe Russell's presumed assistant could be tailored into including this as their responsibilities.
Yeah, I guess I would leave that to them to try.
Right, I mean, it's not something I'm advocating, it's just
Yeah.
an idea that occurred
Yep.
to me, you trying to bring the labor all under one umbrella.
Perfect. Good. All right. Anything else with the ag person? You feel like you got your marching orders there? Okay, good, good. All right. I just want to open it up to Richard here. He has, since this was kind of his original, part of the original idea here, so.
Yes, so thanks. I appreciate the comments and the concerns, Bob, but I do think that this town does need an advocate. I prefer to have a full-time person, and I can assure you that if you needed volunteers to help pioneer this position, I would step up to the plate because I do have experience in agriculture, and so does Mary Ann. And this is a position that needs to have a skilled person that knows about agriculture, not just a staff person who's just going to fill the shoes or fill the role of passing out forms to residents. This is not what the purpose of this position is about, fully. So I would encourage the council to consider giving it a shot, and let's see how we can develop this position so that it's a true advocate position for the entire town, because there are people that want to get into agriculture. I think this is a rural town, and that we should be promoting this and not trying to stifle it. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. All right. Those are all my notes from, I don't know if there was anything else that we wanted to mention. All right. Emil, it looks like you have a comment. Are you good? Oh, you're just looking at me like, I misunderstood your body language there. Sorry. All right. Any other follow-up or final comments on the, all right. So let me just talk about our next steps and things like that.
Yeah, I just wanted to also clarify on the position for the assistant town administrator. I think I threw out a number. I wasn't doing the math in my head. So the salary and the benefits is probably closer to about 160.
That's what I was thinking.
So that's, I just wanted to clarify that for the record. And as far as, we had talked also about the potential for, I just want to bring this up. I don't know that there'll be direction from council to put it into this budget because we have those other funding sources, but we talked about the possibility of acquiring additional LPRs for areas around the town. And so there would be a need for, probably another $70,000, but I know that there was talk about doing it from different funding sources, but I just wanted to put that out there, that that's something that's not contemplated in this budget, but again, we have other funding sources that it can come from, but I just wanted to put it out there.
Thank you.
Does it make sense to plan it into the budget, but using our forfeiture fund as the funding source?
Yeah, that's kind of a one-off. I think that we're probably better served doing it the way we have done that, where we just get council direction to do that and then just kind of not put it as part of the budget process.
Would it be better to put it in the budget and put it as funded via some sort of a grant or something, as we have other items that are projects that are in there that are funded by a grant? If we don't get the grant, we're not doing the project.
Well, we don't, I mean, there's no grants that we're aware of for LPRs, but I'll defer to Emil if you think that that's a better way to do it.
Best practice and recommendations that if you don't have a grant, or you're not apply, or have already applied to a grant, not to include it, which
Okay.
is why in some cases we do not.
Okay. All right.
Well, guys, you got to remember too, the entire LPR project, it was all funded out of the forfeiture.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
the addition of 2 more cameras is well within our means
Correct.
of using that fund when the time we give them the go-ahead, for that.
Are we at 2 or 4? Because I thought the last number I heard batted around was
2 areas, before cameras.
4 cameras.
Well,
Four cameras,
I
but-
think you might want to give an update on that, because we were originally talking about 4 cameras, but I think
Right.
2 of them are covered, so we may only be down to 2.
Okay.
I can give a quick update
Yeah.
on that. So we did identify that we thought we had the need for 4 additional cameras. One of those was the location approximately at Griffin and US 27. In reevaluating our camera system, we realized that actually the one at Griffin and 209th actually covers the east-west bound Griffin Road. So we're covered out there. The other location that we identified as a potential, exception would be Griffin and Bonaventure. And in looking at that and studying that location, I determined that we would have to have one on the south side of Griffin Road and one on the north side because the lanes are too wide for LPRs to adequately capture the the cars driving by. So that would require, obviously, the revocable license agreement process through the county. Not only that, but then tearing up Griffin Road, which good luck with that. So what I thought we could do is approach the city of Weston and arrange a similar arrangement like we have with Davie, where on Volunteer, the one close to the Waffle House is actually housed within the town of Davie, but it's our LPR. And that was through an agreement between myself and the town administrator, Rick Lamack. So I approached the city manager from the city of Weston, and I said, hey, we need to have an LPR out there. Would you be amenable to allowing us to place one on Weston's property across the canal, but basically that you, city of Weston, and the town of Southwest Ranches would be able to access? He said, well, I got good news for you. We're actually planning to do something there anyway. So that eliminates that location. City of Weston's going to do one. And basically, Davie officers will be able to utilize that location. So it remains the 2 other locations that remain basically would be Griffin and Dykes and Griffin and 148th. So that's what we're proposing to do. And that'll close the loop. Anybody coming in or out of our town will certainly be caught on the LPRs.
Good. Thank you, Russell.
You're welcome.
Excellent. What else? Any other?
We have one other issue.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor, we have one other issue to address, a concern brought by a resident related to the fire assessment methodology. So Emil wanted to
Oh,
cover
yes,
that.
thank you.
Yeah. That was the signal. You got
That was
the signal right.
all right.
You
all
did
right,
get
good,
it.
Good, good.
So essentially, the way it works is that we have a contract with the town of Davie. Town of Davie provides services to the town through police and fire. The portion of fire, it's associated, 55% of that contract, it's related to fire. Of that 60%, 55%, then there is a portion of the fire cost that is actually funded through the general fund, which is the EMS services. So then we split that amount, and the remaining balance, which is strictly associated to fire costs, then is funded through the fire assessment. There's also a portion associated to the volunteer fire, which flows through that as well as any other capital projects related to fire, like the BCPA, the apparatus and equipment. Then there's costs associated to that assessment that is incorporated. So that's why we mentioned that it's a full cost recovery. So based on the total cost associated to fire, then we allocate that to the residents accordingly through that fire assessment rate. So that's how it works.
Very good, thank you. All right, anything else?
Closing comment.
Go for it.
Mr. Mayor, I inquired from Emil a while back about the millage rate over time, and this council has continuously voted for ad val millage reductions from 2020 since we were elected.
Right.
So, I mean, our millage has gone down. As a next year thinking, we may be taking in some additional revenue, and I would like to explore the idea of bringing on another police officer, because there has been a lot of complaints about
Yeah.
not enough law enforcement officers.
Right.
And just to explore it, It's not something I'm advocating. It's something I'd like to really take a look at and how it would impact the budget.
I think it's a great point.
Thanks.
Basically, Dave was saying he wants to not add anything into the budget at this point, but next year, take a look at potentially how we can get more police out on our streets.
Oh, okay. Something interesting just triggered my mind.
Yeah.
You know, we have those new roving patrols for speeders
Right.
and all that. This tells you that the speed signs are working, that we put in the poles in my area, Rolling Oaks. I woke up one morning, I actually got up before noon.
Wow,
and-
come on.
Boy.
And I'm walking down my pasture line, and I see what looks like a whole bunch of bichopias that fell over on my neighbor's yard. So the closer I got, it turns out it was a Davie police officer buried the black car in the bichopias.
Really?
And it was obviously one of the, extra patrols that we put out.
Nice.
But the point I'm trying to get to is, so I sat out and watched the whole thing. I didn't approach the car or anything. I just sat out and watched it for like 15, 20 minutes. And all the cars and trucks that went by, none of them were stopped. They were all doing the speed limit.
Nice.
Because I know that they were there with a laser, and you could see that, I could see a little bit of it, what was going on.
Yeah.
But they have to pass the pole to slow down, their speed going down. So we know the speed poles are working, and we've got 12 more coming
Right.
in on this budget. And I said this at an HOA, this is the second thing I'm leading up to, but I didn't say it officially in the town, and that is Rolling Oaks doesn't need any more speed poles. It's got the two it needs. So the 4 that I'm allocated, I'm giving 1 to each one of you guys to put in your areas, an extra one, for that.
Great.
So we don't need another one in there. So, it'd be a waste. And you've got there's more side streets or entranceways in Sunshine Ranches, Country Estates, and Green Meadows
Right.
than there are in Rolling Oaks. So you guys have 4 each to figure out where you want to put them.
Perfect. Very
Yeah.
good. Thanks, Gary. It's great news. A lot of good news in this budget. A lot of good news. Let me just say, any other final comments from the council? All right. No, Russell?
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to say a couple of closing remarks. First of all, I wanted to thank you all for your consideration, your insistence that I hire an assistant, first and foremost. I do want to thank you. That's going to help immensely with, with us being more responsive. I pride myself on being pretty responsive, but it's only going to assist, and also being more strategic. The town has a lot of needs, and we need to work on things and not just put out fires as they come up, but work on things long-term for the long-term benefit of the town and its residents. So I think that's going to really position us well to do that. And I want to thank Emil and Rich and Ariana and Christina, the financial services team, as well as the rest of the town staff for working so hard on this budget. This process was so smooth internally. That also is a testament to council. So I want to thank you all for your leadership and for working with me on my very first budget presentation as me at the helm. So I just want to thank you all for making this as efficient of a process as possible. So thank you all.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Great job. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, residents, for coming out. Really appreciate your participation, your ideas, and your questions. Thank you. So our next budget meeting is on September 12th. So we have September
At 6 o'clock.
6th at 6 o'clock.
Yes, sorry.
September 12th at 6 o'clock. And so look forward to getting some updates before then, and we will reconvene on budget at that point. Great. Thank you all for coming out. Have a great evening.
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.